What is happening, Bigger Pockets? It's Matt Faircloth. So we are here in a middle of the process, fix and flip, with my friend Umang, and he bought this property on Hubzu, which is one of the online auction sites. It doesn't have to be Hubzu. It could be like, it works similar to like Zome and foreclosure.com and stuff like that. But he's a big Hubzu guy, does a lot of work with Hubzu. So today we're going to talk about how to get phenomenal fix and flip and rental deals, just get great deals in general using the online auction sites. And Hubzu is the one that you're most experienced in. So we're going to talk about Hubzu. Okay. So Umang, say hi to everybody.
Hey guys.
Hey, cool. All right. So tell us what we got. We got how many beds, how many baths, what'd you pay for it?
Yeah, so this is a 1500 square feet property.
Cool.
2 bedrooms, 2 bath,
Yep.
and a loft here with a
Yep.
garage.
Yep.
I paid $161,000. That includes the 5% Hubzu fees.
Okay.
And this was an occupied property.
Yeah.
So-
we'll get to that in a second.
Yes.
But at 161, this place is worth what fixed up? Like how much is it
Yeah,
worth?
so this is like ARV is like 235 to
235. And we did another tour through here. You told me it's going to cost you about $18,000 to reno. So he bought it for 161. He's going to put 18,000 in reno into it. Factor in maybe a couple grand in carrying costs, and he's going to sell for what did you say? 235.
Yeah.
So minus realtor fees, looking at a profit of around 40K, and he got it through an online auction. Okay, cool. So let me ask you a few questions. You said something about the Hubzu fees. What is that?
Yeah, so for most of the deals, they charge 5% commission
Okay.
that a buyer needs to pay to Hubzu.
So as buyers, you may be used to buying a property and the seller has to pay the commission because that's just, you don't see it. This Hubzu and the other online auction sites, I believe, are also, they're buyer paid commissions. So you have to factor that in when you run your math for these auctions. It's not just, because the 161 wasn't the final bid. Your bid was probably in the 150s.
So it was 153.
153. Factor that in, guys. He bought the property under the auction site. Your final click win was 153,
Yeah.
but your actual closing price was 161. A lot of closing costs, guys, for these online auctions. So make sure that when you know that what your buy price is, you got to factor in and read the fine print, right?
You always do that.
Okay, cool. So the fees for closing. Tell us how the auctions work. Because you were telling me offline how there's a certain equation that you use to kind of work these auctions and to get great deals. So how do you do it?
So as you mentioned earlier, like I've been on Hubzu for a while now.
Yeah.
So this is my 5th property over there.
Yeah.
And what I learned slowly with the experience is, you decide for a property, you do your, you have your comps, sales comps and all that, and you decide your own price that you want to pay for that property. And don't get emotional.
Yep.
Just stick to that price. So this particular property, this was on auction for close to like 4 months. And
4 months.
what would happen is, like, I'm sure folks know about this, but there was a reserve price. So every property, for example, say this property, just making up a number here, they had a reserve price for say 180K.
180 was the reserve.
So when the first
Now, did they state the reserve? Did they say the reserve is 180?
No,
or did they not say? You don't know the reserve.
You don't know the reserve, so that's a.
So for those that are watching, a reserve is, if you're on an auction, the reserve means that's how much the bank is willing to take for the property, and they will take no less than that. Unfortunately, it'd make life real easy if they just tell you how much that reserve is, but they like to play games, they like to keep it interesting, so they're not going to tell you the reserve. You just keep bidding, and the sites pretty much say reserve not met.
Yes.
And then you have to just guess, well, I guess it's 180 or whatever, but once the reserve gets met, then you know that you've got a real auction, and the bank reserves the right to reject the entire auction if the reserve doesn't get met. But once you get above that, they have to accept whatever price comes across the table, right? Okay, so this was on the auction for 4 months with the reserve not being met, and it would go out.
So the way it works is basically the auction remains there online for a week.
Yeah.
If they don't meet the reserve, then they restart the auction every week. Okay, so it kept on happening.
It's like
for
Groundhog's Day, over and over and over again, right?
And then I could see that the folks who were initially bidding, they kept on dropping. They would just drop out.
The amount of bidders drop out.
Yeah. So, and then in the end, I got this property after like 3.5-4 months for 153.
For 153.
Yeah.
But were people bidding higher than that in the beginning?
They might have, but it never met their reserve. So
Right. Do you feel like they kept just dropping the reserve, dropping the
Yeah.
reserve, dropping the reserve finally until it came down to a point? But you're saying the bidder pool fell off.
Yeah.
You know, so that's interesting, guys. So a lot of people that I've even talked to, even myself, you know, turning myself in, I've gotten frustrated with the online auctions and said, man, you can never get a good deal on these things. The bank's never going to take your number. I'm out of here. I'm going to go find something else. Umang stuck around and stayed in the auction, bid every week, got in there, put his bid in on a weekly basis. It's free to put in a bid if you don't take it, right?
Yeah.
So he put in a bid every week, which is free to do. And then finally, after 4 months, he got a phenomenal deal. So the second thing about the online auctions that I want you guys to take home is patience is what's going to get you the deal. And patience and consistency, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you probably never adjusted your number. It was just, this is my number, this is my number, this is my number.
I was sure what I wanted to
Right.
play, so I was stuck to 153
Yeah.
all the time.
Okay. Okay. Those are some great tips. Anything else on how to really win it? How to really win great deals on Hubzu? Any other on how to search or how to use those sites?
Yeah, so I think on Hubzu that one criteria that I made sure that I followed is stick to condos,
Yep.
because there
That's what you know. You know how to do condo deals really, really well. So.
there's less risk involved in that.
Mhm.
And also one more important thing is on Hubzu, you'll see some properties which are not occupied, meaning you can just like normal sale, you can go in and look at the property and all.
Mhm.
But this property that I got was occupied.
Yeah.
So the risk that I was taking, that's why probably a lot of bidders dropped out.
They disclose
Because,
that, right?
This was occupied.
It's on the, they say occupied, not occupied. right?
They say that.
Interesting. That means there's somebody living there. Either whether it was a tenant if it was a rental, or whether it was the prior homeowner who's lost their home to the bank but are still a holdover and they're staying in the property. Do you think that a lot of people, that you go after occupied properties because a lot of bidders stay away from them, right?
Exactly.
They don't want to deal with it. They don't want the headache.
And you
Yeah.
get slightly, again, there are some headaches involved in that, but you get slightly better deal
Yeah.
as compared to a regular property.
Okay. So you bought occupied property. So now that you bought it, what happens? Do you have to go and negotiate with the people that are there, or do they move out? What?
Yeah. So what happens is this is like my 5th property, as I said before. All of them were occupied,
Mm-hmm.
and Hubzu basically thinks that there is somebody living. They are
Mhm.
not very sure about that.
Oh, they don't verify it.
Yeah. They don't. They probably initially verify when they put it on the market, but then I don't think they were.
They don't come by here.
Yeah. So all the properties that I got, I basically get a lockbox key
Mhm.
code saying that okay, you own this property.
How do
is
you
the-
get this key? They mail it to you? Like, how do you get?
No, they don't give you any key or anything. They just give you the lockbox code.
Oh, and it's like Christmas morning.
Yeah,
You gotta
so-
open up the present and see what you got.
Yeah, so
Right.
it's interesting situation. So every time I
Wow.
would take that key and then I would knock at the door because I don't want to.
So you don't go by the property before closing, before you get that key. You don't.
No,
go by that
of course I
before-
visit the property. I look at the neighborhood and all that, but
You don't knock on the door.
I don't know. I'm not allowed to knock at the door.
Right.
Okay, so I basically after I have my ownership,
Mhm.
I come here, knock at the door,
Yeah.
and 4 out of 5 properties that they were already
Yeah.
vacant, so
Already
nobody
gone.
was living there.
Yeah.
So I basically brought a handyman, broke the lock, and I got
Yeah.
in. One property, it was occupied. Somebody was still living there. The owner herself was
Mhm.
living there, and then I had to basically work with her.
She's a prior owner. You're the owner. She's the prior owner, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I had to work with her to basically.
Yeah, and it's called cash for keys.
Yep.
You gave her a few dollars to
Yeah.
cover just her moving expenses. It's not extortion. It's just maybe she didn't have the money to move. I mean, you gotta understand these people maybe fell on hard circumstances or whatever that caused them to lose their home.
Yeah.
It's a hard circumstance anyway. They gotta move. So have a little bit of compassion and also give them something to move their stuff out. So it's not an opportunity for them to make a profit. It's an opportunity for them to move out. Now,
Yeah, and I think just little experience, just be nice.
Yeah.
Just go there, talk to them politely, and
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a win-win situation that you can always.
Sure. I have heard of people that have bought properties at auction and had the prior owner hold over, and then it's a matter of a fairly quick court filing for an eviction, which is it's hundreds, not thousands, to file a court filing to get them out. They can't stay there. It's not their home anymore. They can't stay in the property. They need to get out. So it's not something to be too afraid of if you know the rules and if you can approach it with compassion, as you said. So cool. Guys, great stuff. Here's a summary. Mind the fees on the online auctions. Okay. Be patient, like Umang did, 4 months, and you got a great deal that he's going to make $40,000 in the profit on. I would wait 4 months for 40 grand. I think a lot of you guys would too. And then the last one was with the occupied properties. There's another one in there too, right? Yeah, cool. So for occupied properties with that have people in them, people don't want to deal with that. So consider dealing with occupied properties because the competition will be less. You can probably get a great deal. So Umang, thank you.
Thank you so
Cool.
much.
Thank you for watching
Thank you,
Bigger
guys.
Pockets. Leave comments down below. I'll get Umang to jump in here so you can leave some comments too and answer some questions you guys may have. Thank you for watching and have a great and profitable week.
Thank you, guys.